In our second reading today and in our gospel, we are reminded that Christ is truly the light that comes to dispel darkness, the light that brings truth, the light that shines forth so that we may walk that journey in faith and in trust. I'm reminded of a story of an older man who one night was getting ready for bed, and he looked in the mirror at himself. And he looked at his face and he says, "Oh my gosh, look at my face. You know, I'm all wrinkled now, and I've got these warts, and my hair is gray, and most of it's falling out. It's not there anymore, and my ears are getting bigger, and look at all these wrinkles." And he looked at his wife and he said, "Honey, can you tell me anything good about myself?" And she said, "Yeah. Your vision's 20/20. It's good to have 20/20 vision, to being able to see clearly. And obviously today we have that whole story of the man who was born blind, who could not see physically. And he is cured and begins to see, not just physically, but begins to see spiritually as well. And the real message is about spiritual light and vision, as well as spiritual darkness and blindness. We see two dynamics going on in this reading. The first is the man who first of all rejoices in the fact that he can visibly see. And someone remarked to me the other day, one of my fellow priests, he said, "Can you imagine how that man felt? It was the first time he could see his parents." The first time in his life that he could see his parents. And so he relished and rejoiced in the fact that he could physically see, something that most of us just take for granted. But then there's a growth in his understanding, his spiritual sight. For first he sees Jesus and he says, "A man did this to me. A man came and he put clay on my eyes and now I can see." And then when he's questioned further, he said, "Well, he's a prophet. He really speaks for God." And so he had a deeper understanding of who Jesus is. And then finally, at the very last, when Jesus comes to him and says to him, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" And he says, "Who is he, Lord?" And Jesus says, "The one that's speaking to you." And he said, "I do believe." Lord, he calls him God. Lord is the title for God alone. And so he worships him. So we have this whole progression of faith that takes place for that man. We also, though, have another progression that goes on here. And that's with the scribes and the Pharisees, who can see physically but cannot see spiritually, who are blinded spiritually so that they cannot look beyond their own limitations of their frame of reference. And because of that, they become more and more blinded to who Jesus is. They expel the man. They are angry at Jesus, and they seek his death. And so we have them going from physical sight to spiritual blindness. Which journey do we travel? That's the invitation for our meditation. Am I traveling more toward the deeper understanding of who Jesus is and truly progressing into a deeper faith and trust, where we can say with Thomas at the resurrection, "My Lord and my God," recognizing Jesus for who he truly is and allowing Jesus to truly be God and Lord within my life? Or can we be sometimes so taken up with the externals of our world, so taken up by the flesh, so taken up by that which is apparent but not substantial, and therefore we become spiritually blind, that we become so preoccupied that we don't think about the important things within life. We become preoccupied with all the incidentals, that we don't think about tenderness and about love. We don't think about forgiveness and reconciliation. We don't forget about those things that we are wont to take for granted, but rather we get all tied up in other stuff rather than in what is truly important and what is eternal. And so we are invited to reflect upon our own journey, not just this Lent, but throughout our life. Jesus wants to open our spiritual eyes. He wants to touch our hearts, that we may recognize him in faith, that our vision may be fantastic, that it may be 2020, as we can say, my Lord and my God.